Jungkook paced back and forth in his farmhouse living room, the sharp smell of smoke filling the air as he exhaled deeply, gripping the between his fingers. His jaw was clenched tightly and his eyes burned with rage as he listened to Jimin explaining what had gone wrong. How did this happen, Jimin? He snapped, barely able to control the fury in his voice. He ran a hand through his messy hair, frustration boiling over. His hand shook slightly as he lit another from the pack on the table, despite already finishing one box. Jimin, his best friend and right-hand man, stood by the door watching Jungkook with a mix of concern and caution. He knew Jungkook could be terrifying when he was angry, but he also knew he had to calm him down before things escalated. The girls were drunk, Jungkook, he said, his voice steady but cautious. They were celebrating too hard after yesterday's party. They let their guard down. Shameless idiots, he spat, tossing the half burned to the floor and crushing it under his shoe. How could they drink so much? They're supposed to protect my empire, not act like a bunch of amateurs. I pay them to do their jobs, not get wasted like fools. Jimin took a step forward, trying to calm him. I know, but they will get the weapons back. They have already gone after Daniel's men. You don't need to stress over this. We will handle it. Stress? He growled, reaching for another. This is more than stress, Jimin. That Daniel robbed me. He took what's mine. I want my weapons back. And I want Daniel on his knees begging for mercy. I want him to know what it feels like to cross me. Jimin sighed, watching as Jungkook inhaled deeply, the smoke swirling around his face. He hated seeing Jungkook like this. It was always the same when something went wrong, anger, frustration, and a relentless drive for revenge, but the smoking was getting out of control. You have already gone through one box, Jungkook, he said gently. You need to stop. It's not good for your health. Come on, man, take a break. You can't fix this if you are too wound up. Jungkook ignored him, his mind racing with thoughts of Daniel. The name alone made his blood boil. He hated him despite it, him for trying to touch what was his. Wine was his, and Daniel would pay for even daring to come near his world. I want him, he said, his voice low and dangerous. I want to see the fear in his eyes, Jimin. I want him to know what happens when someone touches my property. Jimin stiffened at the word property. He knew Jungkook didn't mean it like that when it came to Ryan, but his cold Mafia person could be harsh. Jungkook cared deeply for her, but in his world, feelings were dangerous. Jimin stepped closer, gently taking the from Jungkook's hand, tossing it into the ashtray. Listen, you will get your chance to make him pay, but for now, you need to calm down. Ryan wouldn't want to see you like this. At the mention of your name, Jungkook froze. His eyes softened slightly, but the anger was still there, bubbling beneath the surface. Ryan, he muttered. Yeah, she must be waiting for you, Jungkook. You came here all of a sudden without informing her. Now go, she must be worried, he said in a concerned voice. The rain continued to pound against the wide windows of Jungkook's mansion, casting long shadows in the dimly lit living room. You sat on the couch, curled up with a pillow in your lap, anxiously biting your lower lip as your eyes flicked to the entrance door every few minutes. The soft ticking of the clock on the wall seemed louder with each passing second, making you nervous. Words. Why is Jungkook's phone still not in the coverage area? He muttered in frustration. He left in such a hurry, and now I don't even know where he's gone. You huffed, letting out a sigh as you glanced at the phone on the couch beside you. The rain outside hadn't let up since the evening, and the thought of Jungkook being out there in the cold and rain only made your worry grow. He wasn't feeling well since yesterday. He had barely eaten, and you noticed the fatigue in his eyes. Though he hadn't said anything, now with him gone, no word from him, the tension in your chest was unbearable. I should call Jimin, you mumbled to yourself, grabbing your phone. If anyone knew where Jungkook was, it would be him. You quickly scrolled through your contacts and dialed Jimin's number, hoping for an answer. But instead of his voice, a robotic message played through the speaker. The number you're trying to reach is currently switched off. Ah, you groaned, tossing the phone onto the couch in frustration. Now even Jimin's phone is off. You let out a frustrated sigh, sinking deeper into the couch. The rain outside only seemed to get heavier, and the anxiety bubbling inside you felt overwhelming. You glanced towards the window, watching the raindrops stream down the glass like teeny rivers. It's raining so heavily, you whispered to yourself, rubbing your hands together nervously, and I have no idea where he's gone. Your heart ached with worry. Jungkook always took on so much, especially with his role in the Mafia. You didn't know the details, but you could see how much it weighed on him. The late nights, the endless phone calls, and the dangerous tension that seemed to follow him everywhere. It was all too much, and you were scared, scared of what could happen if he kept going down this path. I don't understand these mafia things, you said quietly, your voice soft as you stared out the window. But it's really troubling him. It's not just work, it's something deeper, something darker, and it's taking a toll on him. You pulled the pillow closer to your chest, resting your chin on it as you continued to watch the rain. The thought of him out there fighting his battles, risking his life, it sent a shiver down your spine. Maybe you whispered to yourself, maybe I should ask him to leave this life. If he stops, if he quits, maybe we can live peacefully without all this danger hanging over us. The idea of a life without the mafia, without the constant threat, sounded like a dream. Just you and Jungkook living quietly, peacefully. No more dangerous meeting or risky deals, no more late nights where you were left wondering if he would make it back home safe. But you knew it wasn't that simple. Jungkook was deeply involved, and leaving wasn't as easy as just walking away. Still, you couldn't help but hope. He's strong, but even he has his limits, you thought, and I don't want to lose him to this. You sighed again, your gaze drifting back to the door. The clock ticked past midnight, and your worry only deepened. Where was he? Why hadn't he called? The uneasy feeling in your stomach grew with each passing minute. Jungkook, you whispered his name softly, almost as if saying it aloud would make him appear, but the door remained closed, the room silent except for the constant patter of rain against the windows. Your thoughts wandered to the last conversation you had with him earlier that day. He had been tense, his mind elsewhere, and though you had tried to ask what was wrong, he brushed it off with simple nothing. Now you realized it wasn't nothing. Something was bothering him, something big. Suddenly, a loud rumble of thunder echoed outside, making you flinch slightly. The rain poured harder, and your heart raced faster. I hope he's okay, you murmured, pulling the blanket from the back of the couch over your shoulders. He's not feeling well, and now he's out in this weather. You glanced at the phone again, hoping, wishing it would ring, but the screen remained dark, silent. I need to talk to him, you thought. I need to tell him that we don't have to live like this. We can find a way out. There has to be a way. As the minute dragged on, you grew more and more restless. Just then, the faint sound of footsteps echoed from outside, and your heart skipped a beat. You rushed toward the door. Your hand trembled as you reached for the handle. Jungkook, you called out, hope rising in your chest. And then the door slowly creaked open. The door creaked open, and there he was, Jungkook, standing in the entrance with lightly wet hair and jacket. Relief washed over you like a wave, and you smiled, the worry that had weighed on you all evening finally gone. Jungkook, you came finally. You said, your voice filled with happiness. You had been waiting for hours, your mind racing with all the possibilities of what could have happened to him. Seeing him safe and standing in front of you was all you needed at that moment. But Jungkook didn't respond. He didn't even look at you. He stepped inside, his shoes wet from the rain, leaving small puddles on the floor. You quickly closed the door behind him and followed him into the house. Jungkook, you called again, your voice a little softer now. Where were you? I tried calling, but your phone wasn't reachable, and Jimin's phone was switched off too. You hurried after him as he made his way through the hallway, but he wasn't listening. His face was tight, his eyes distant, as if his mind was somewhere else entirely. Jungkook, are you listening to me? You asked, louder this time, hoping to snap him out of whatever thoughts were clouding his mind. Yeah, he mumbled, barely paying attention, his eyes not meeting yours. He gave a quick smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. You frowned a little, confused by his cold behavior. You decided to let it go for now, thinking maybe he was just tired. Smiling softly, you reached for his hand. Come, I prepared your favorite dishes. Let's eat, I'm so hungry. You said, trying to lighten the mood, gently tugging on his hand. But again, no response. He didn't even seem to notice your touch. His body was there, but his mind was far away. You felt a small pang in your chest, disappointment creeping in as you tried to grab his attention again. Jungkook, you called softly, then tapped his shoulder lightly when he didn't react. Jungkook, why aren't you paying attention? This time he finally stopped walking and turned to you, his expression tight with frustration. I'm sorry, he said, his voice flat. I was just thinking about some issue. He ran a hand through his wet hair, pacing back and forth, as though he was trying to control something bubbling beneath the surface. He bit your lip, feeling the tension in the air. His whole demeanor was off. He was clearly angry about something, and it was unsettling. Jungkook, I get that you're upset, but I have been trying to talk to you, you said gently. I'm worried. You have been out so late, it's raining, and you're not feeling well. And then it came, the topic you always brought up, hoping it would make a difference. You took a deep breath and said, that's why I have told you so many times to stop this Mafia business, Jungkook. It's dangerous and it's hurting you. You don't need to do this anymore. Please, just stop and find something better for us. I can't keep living like this, waiting and worrying all the time. You didn't realize it, but those were the words that broke the last thread of his patience. In a flash, Jungkook stopped pacing, and in one swift movement he turned to face you. If you cannot live like this with me, then leave. He snapped, his voice so sharp that you flinched. Then you don't need to worry about anything. He stood there frozen, his words hit you like a slap to the face. The man who was always so gentle, so loving towards you, had never raised his voice like that. You could feel your heart pounding in your chest, the sting of his words still lingering in the air. Jungkook's face was confronted with frustration, his jaw clenched tightly. When you cannot live with my profession, then you cannot love me, he added, his voice colder than you would ever heard before. The words felt like a knife cutting deep into your heart. Before you could even process what was happening, Jungkook reached up and with a cold expression took off his wedding ring. You watched in shock as he held it up, looked at it for a moment, and then without hesitation, he threw it out the window into the garden. Your breath caught in your throat. The clink of the ring hitting the ground outside felt like the final blow. Jungkook didn't even look back as he turned and stormed up the stairs, his footsteps heavy, leaving you standing there numb with disbelief. For a long moment, you just stood there, frozen in place. You couldn't believe what had just happened. Jungkook, the man who had always treated you with care and respect, had just yelled at you, had just thrown away his wedding ring and words he had told you to leave. You felt a lump in your throat, tears trickling at the corners of your eyes. The rain outside continued to pour down, the sound of it echoing through the silent house. Everything felt surreal, like a nightmare you couldn't wake up from. Slowly you walked over to the window, looking out into the garden. The rain was falling heavily, and somewhere out there in the darkness was your wedding ring, the symbol of your love, now thrown away as if it meant nothing. Your chest tightened as tears welled up in your eyes. How had things gotten to this point? Jungkook had always been so patient with you. Even when you brought up the Mafia, he never reacted this way. But tonight something was different. His anger, his frustration, it was too much. And you couldn't shake the feeling that you had pushed him over the edge. You wiped your tears with the back of your hand, your mind racing. I didn't mean it for to come to this, you whispered to yourself. I just wanted him to be safe, for us to be safe. But now you were standing here alone, and the man you loved was upstairs, angry and distant. After a long moment of staring into the rain, you made a decision. You couldn't just leave things like this. You had to find the ring. You had to make things right. As the rain poured relentlessly, you stood in the garden, soaked to the bone, your fingers trembling from both the cold and emotion running through you. Your heart pounded in your chest as you held the torchlight, shining it over the wet grass, desperately searching for the wedding ring Jungkook had thrown away. You knew you couldn't fight with Jungkook over this. You had seen the tension in his face earlier, the way he was pacing, clearly troubled by something. He had told you he was facing an issue, and you should have understood that he was already on edge. Jungkook had never hurt you before. He had always been so gentle, so careful with his words, even when he was angry. This was the first time he had let his frustration get the best of him, and it hurt, but you knew that deep down he would be hurting more than you were once he calmed down. With that thought in mind, you continued your search, shining a torchlight across the grass, the rain making it hard to see anything clearly. You were soaked, shivering from the cold, but none of that mattered right now. All you could think was the wedding ring and the memories tied to it. As you moved through the garden, your mind drifted back to the day Jungkook had the ring made. You had gone with him to the goldsmith, and he had been so particular about every detail. I want this to be perfect, he had said, his voice firm as he inspected the ring. There can't be a single flaw. It has to be unique in this world because my love for Ryan is unique and deep. You remembered how he had scolded the goldsmith for a tiny scratch on the surface of the ring, making him redo it from scratch. Jungkook had been so determined to get everything right, to make sure the ring was as perfect as his love for you, and now that same ring was lost somewhere in the grass, thrown away in a moment of anger. I can't lose this, you whispered again, wiping your tears with your sleeve. I can't lose him. You crouched down, drowning your hands through the grass, the rain making everything slippery and difficult. The cold was biting at your skin, but you didn't care. All you could think was about finding that ring and fixing things with Jungkook. Memories of the two of you flooded your mind as you searched, but no matter how upset you both got, Jungkook always made sure to come back to you to apologize and make things right. He never let the sun set on an argument, always choosing to compromise because he couldn't stand being away from you for long. He always comes back. You whispered to yourself, your voice shaking, and this time I will go to him. You knew this wasn't like your usual fight. This time you had touched a nerve. You had brought up the one thing that Jungkook struggled with the most, his profession. You continued searching, your hands brushing over the wet grass, your heart aching with every second that passed. The rain continued to pour, but you didn't care. All that mattered was finding that ring and mending what had been broken. The next morning, Jungkook woke up with a groan, stretching his arms above his head. His eyes blinked open and he quickly realized he was still wearing the clothes from the night before. His gaze drifted around the room, half smoke littered the table, and an empty whiskey bottle lay on its side. His jaws furrowed in confusion. "What the?" he muttered, taking a miss. He sat up, running a hand through his tousled hair, feeling the effects of the booze from last night. As he stood and walked over to the window, he pulled the curtains open. The sight outside made his heart drop. There you were, standing in the garden, fully soaked, your hair plastered to your face and clothes dripping wet. You were crouching, searching for something in the grass. "Man," he whispered in disbelief, panic rising in his chest. What is she doing there? He pressed his forehead against the glass, trying to piece together what had happened the night before. Flashes of his anger, revolts, and the sound of the ring hitting the ground rushed back to him. He squeezed his eyes shut, hitting the back of his head gently, trying to remember more clearly, but it was all fuzzy because of the alcohol. He had come back to the room, drunk the whole bottle of whiskey, and blacked out, leaving him unaware of what had happened after the fight. After a few moments, the memories came crashing back, his anger, the shouting, and the horrible thing he had done. "Man," he whispered, guilt flooding his chest. His eyes widened as he realized what you were doing. "She is looking for the ring." His heart ached and his throat tightened as he stared at your fragile figure in the rain. Without wasting a second, Jungkook turned and bolted out of the room, rushing downstairs. His feet pounded against the marble floors as he sprinted towards the garden. "Wine," he yelled. As soon as he reached the garden, his voice cracking with desperation. You turned around at the sound of his voice, a tired but soft smile spreading across your face. "Good morning, Jungkook," you greeted him warmly, your voice light as if nothing was wrong. "Give me 5 more minutes. I will find the ring." Your words were so simple that they hit Jungkook like a dagger straight to his heart. You were smiling, pretending everything was fine, even though you would spend all night in the rain searching for something he had thrown away in anger. Tears stung at his eyes as he approached you, his heart aching at your innocence, at your endless love for him. "Man," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He reached out and gently held your shoulders, his hands trembling slightly as he looked into your tired eyes. His heart sank even further, seeing how pale and exhausted you were. "I'm sorry," he choked out, his voice barely audible. His eyes were full of guilt and regret. "I'm so sorry for what I said. I didn't mean any of it." You opened your mouth to reply, "Shankar," but before you could finish, your eyes rolled back and you collapsed into his arms. "Ryan," he screamed, catching you before you hit the ground. His panic spiked as he shook you gently, trying to wake you up. "Ryan, wake up, please, wake up." His heart pounded in his chest as he screamed for help. "Someone call the doctor now." He shouted at the top of his lungs, ordering his guards to get immediate help. Without waiting for anyone to arrive, Jungkook scooped you up in his arms, your cold and soaked body limp against his chest. He held you tightly, his tears mixing with the rain as he carried you back inside the mansion. "Hang in there, baby, please," he whispered, his voice breaking as he rushed you up the stairs to the bedroom. He laid you carefully on the bed, grabbing the blankets to cover you and trying to keep you warm. His hands trembled as he wiped the wet strands of hair from your face, his eyes never leaving your pale features. "I'm sorry, Van," he whispered again, tears freely falling now. "This is all my fault. I should have never yelled at you. I should have never thrown the ring. Please just wake up." Minutes felt like hours as he anxiously waited for the doctor to arrive. Every second dragging on painfully, He paced back and forth, glancing at you every few seconds, terrified that you wouldn't wake up. Jungkook sat beside you, his hand wrapped around yours, waiting anxiously for the doctor to arrive. After what felt like an eternity, she finally came in, checking your pulse and temperature. Jungkook watched her every move, his heart pounding, fear and regret battling inside him. The doctor smiled softly after a few moments. "No need to worry," she said reassuringly. "She lost consciousness because she was out in the rain for too long. She's exhausted, but she will be fine. Just make sure she stays warm, gives her some rest, and feed her something hot once she wakes up." Jungkook nodded, listening carefully to every word. The doctor handed him a small packet of medicine and gave you an injection to help your recovery. "Give her this once she wakes up," the doctor instructed, patting his shoulder gently. "Be strong, she will be okay." With that, the doctor left and Jungkook let out a shaky breath of relief. He sat down beside you, never letting go of your hand, his thumb tracing small circles on your skin as he anxiously waited for you to wake up. His mind was racing with guilt, regret, and overwhelming love for you. After about 15 minutes, you stirred slightly, your eyelids fluttering open. "Jungkook?" you whispered, your voice weak but soft. Jungkook immediately leaned closer, helping you sit up gently and adjusting the pillows so you could rest your back comfortably. "How are you feeling, mine?" he asked softly, his voice filled with concern. Your response, however, shocked him. "I'm sorry, I couldn't find the ring," you said, your voice trembling. There was a hint of sadness in your eyes as you struggled to speak, still thinking about the ring even in your weakened state. Jungkook's heart clenched and he stared at you in disbelief. How could he still be thinking about that after everything? His throat tightened with emotion and without thinking, he quickly wrapped his arms around you, pulling you into a tight embrace. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he fought to keep them from falling. "Vine," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He pulled back slightly and looked at you, his eyes brimming with love and guilt. "You don't have to be sorry. Look," he said, holding up the ring that was now in his hand. Your eyes widened in surprise. "You found it?" you whispered, a faint smile appearing on your lips. Jungkook nodded, his voice cracking with emotion. "Yeah, I found it. But why did you go through all that for this ring? You spent the whole night searching in the rain. What if something had happened to you? Did you even think about how I would feel if I lost you?" His voice broke as he spoke, his lips trembling as he tried to hold back his tears. The thought of losing you, the thought of you going through so much just for a ring overwhelmed him. He reached out and gently touched his face, your fingers brushing away the tears that had escaped his eyes. "Jungkook, I should have never brought up the Mafia stuff last night. I know how much it means to you. I'm sorry," you said softly, guilt filling your voice. But Jungkook shook his head, keeping your face in his hands as he looked deeply into your eyes. "No one, don't say that. I know you are worried about me and I get it. I know this life scares you sometimes, and I'm sorry for putting you through that. I was just shocked because you loved me despite knowing everything about the Mafia, but I understand now. You just want me to be safe." You nodded, tears slipping down your cheeks as you realized how much he truly understood your worries. "I just love you so much, Jungkook. I don't want to lose you." Jungkook's heart broke a little more at your words and he pulled you into his arms again, holding you close to his chest. "I know, and I love you too. I promise you, one. I will never behave like that again. I will take care of myself and I will make sure to keep you safe. Always." His words were like a balm to your heart, and you melted into his embrace, feeling the warmth of his love surround you. The pain and fear of the previous night slowly began to fade, replaced by the comfort of knowing he was there with you, always. Jungkook pulled back slightly, looking at you with tear-filled eyes and a soft smile. He gently brushed your wet hair away from your face and leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead. His lips lingered there for a moment, filled with all the love and regret he felt. "You're my everything, Vine. I will protect you with my life, I promise." He whispered against your skin. You closed your eyes, feeling the warmth of his love in that simple kiss. It wasn't just an apology, it was a vow. Thank you for watching.